All right, so Donald Trump had a conversation sitting down with Bill O'Reilly, of all people, where he was basically talking in front of a Trump supporting crowd about how he has recently gotten his COVID booster shot. So this is kind of interesting for a number of different reasons, but mainly just in terms of how he interacts with the crowd and their response to him getting this booster. So let's just go ahead and dive into this clip, and then I'll give you some of my thoughts afterwards.
But look, we did something that was historic. We saved tens of millions of lives worldwide. We, together, all of us, not me, we got a vaccine done, 3 vaccines done, and tremendous therapeutics like Regeneron and other things that have saved a lot of lives. We got a vaccine done in less than 9 months that was supposed to take from 5 to 12 years. Because of that vaccine, millions and millions of people. I think this would have been the Spanish flu of 1917, where up to 100 million people died. This was going to ravage the country far beyond what it is right now. Take credit for it. Take credit for it. What we've done is historic. Don't let them take it away. Don't take it away from ourselves. You're playing right into their hands when you sort of like, oh, the vaccine. If you don't want to take it, you shouldn't be forced to take it. No mandates, but take credit because we saved tens of millions of lives. Take credit. Don't let them take that away from you.
Okay, so the president made news.
Do you agree with that?
Right? Both the president and I are vaxxed, and did you get the booster?
Yes.
I got it too. Okay, so
don't. That's all. There's a very tiny group over there.
Okay, so yeah, again, that was kind of interesting for a number of different reasons, right? Obviously, you see kind of towards the beginning, he doesn't really get any applause, and this is kind of what Trump likes to do at a lot of his rallies, especially when he was running in 2016 against Hillary Clinton, is he kind of likes to just go out there and like feel the crowd and see what type of rhetoric that they respond to, and then the next time he goes out and gives a speech, he's going to hammer home on that rhetoric, and he's going to pick things out of his language that didn't get a lot of applause. And you see there at the beginning, when he starts to talk about him being vaccinated and, let's take credit for the vaccine, then he doesn't really get that many applause. Then the first time that he gets applause is when he says, there shouldn't be a mandate. And then he kind of, continues on and he keeps getting applause. And the second that he says that he's gotten a booster, then he starts to hear some boos. But he did kind of point out something that was, a little bit valid there at the end, which is the fact that, yeah, it is kind of a tiny minority that is, super anti-vax in a, principled way, even though they're delusionally wrong about the vaccines. But it is a very, very vocal minority that represents even the Republican Party, which apparently, according to data, is, even a majority of them could be vaccinated at this point. So, it's probably roughly around 50, 60, maybe, up and under that amount for the Republican Party, or members who identify as Republicans, in terms of how many have been vaccinated. So it is a very, very vocal minority that are super, super anti-vax. And Trump was right to kind of point that out there at the end. Another thing that I will give credit to Donald Trump, even though I absolutely despise the guy on policy in pretty much every single way imaginable, but the one thing that you kind of got to give credit to is the warp speed thing that he did to basically ratchet up the speed at which these vaccines and a lot of the other treatments were going to be developed. Yeah, he did kind of cut a lot of the red tape, and you got to give him a little bit of credit there. Now, this is something that I don't understand why Trump was not doing from the beginning, okay? Especially with a character like Trump, who is, first and foremost like an entertainer, first and foremost, a con man, a snake oil salesman who likes to, profit off of everything that he can. Why the fuck from the beginning of the pandemic were you not out there, figuring out how to sell Trump masks, or, coming up with designs for that, or, talking about and bragging about, as he was right there, right? His entire message was, we should be taking credit for these vaccines. We should be, bragging about this and how many lives that we saved. That's a message you should have been doing from day one. But this guy wouldn't even go and get the vaccine on camera in front of his supporters, right? He wasn't going out there every day and aggressively lobbying for his supporters to do it. And it was pretty much just because he's a coward and he's a cuck, and he's afraid of his supporters that are at least some decent subset of them are anti-vax. So he wasn't really willing to go out there and make arguments like this recently, or until recently, basically. But, if this is what he was doing from the beginning of the pandemic, we could have saved a hell of a lot more lives, okay? How many people remain unvaccinated in the country that are Republicans that are also dying right now? I mean, you see it in the data, and maybe this ties in a little bit with what Republicans are starting to see and trying to come out with a little bit more pro-vaccine messaging is, it's overwhelmingly at this point Republicans who are dying dying from COVID because they remain unvaccinated. The simple fact of it is the vast majority of people who have died from COVID since we've had a majority of our population vaccinated, the vast majority of them have been right-wing, and they have been anti-vaxxers. They have been people who are not yet vaccinated. So, this is largely the Republican Party, and you see it here in the data. Counties that went heavily for Donald Trump have seen much lower vaccination rates and much higher death rates from COVID. So you see it here in the data. Counties over here, especially in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, who overwhelmingly went to Donald Trump. In these counties, you also see like an exponential growth basically in the amount of COVID deaths that these counties are seeing. So it's it's at this point it's almost like a one-to-one correlation. I've seen data depending on which specific areas and counties that you're looking at, where it's like anywhere from 95 to 99% of people who are in the hospital and dying from COVID are unvaccinated. So again, brings me to my original point, which is a con man like Donald Trump, you should have seen this from the beginning. I don't know why you were even hesitant at all. You should have dove headfirst into the pro-vaccine messaging. I don't give a fuck if he calls it the Trump vaccine. I don't give a fuck if he tries to take credit for everything that scientists develop. I really don't care. What I care about at the end of the day is more people getting vaccinated so that we don't have as many new variants that are popping up around the world, and that applies not only to U.S. citizens but also citizens of the entire human race around the world. We should be ramping up capacity for production of vaccines. We should be eliminating the patents so that other facilities around the world can ramp up their production and provide vaccines for their civilians. So we should be doing this on a global effort basically, but just in a micro scale. Okay, you should have been marketing this from the beginning, right? You should have been hammering it home. And again, I don't give a single shit if he called it the Trump vaccine. I don't give a single shit if he went out there every single day bragging about the fact that he single-handedly created this vaccine and it's going to save so many lives. At the end of the day, all we should really care about is, are we saving people's lives, right? Are we getting more people vaccinated so that we can try to actually move past a COVID, a pandemic sort of present that we are in right now perpetually. The reality of the pandemic right now is, yes, it is going to become endemic if it's not already endemic. We're never going to have no COVID spreading around the country. That is not something that is ever going to reasonably happen. So what we should be doing basically is trying to reduce the amount of deaths and hospitalizations so that our healthcare system doesn't collapse and we can prevent people from dying. So if that's the main goal in this entire fight to get more people vaccinated, in this entire fight to move past the pandemic basically, then we could have used a guy like Donald Trump going out there and aggressively lobbying his supporters over and over and over again, regardless of what fucking rhetoric he comes out there to justify it, right? Maybe if you had Donald Trump going out there and saying, liberals, Hillary Clinton really doesn't want you to get the vaccine, and liberals despise the fact it's going to trigger all of the liberals in the United States if you go and get vaxxed, then I don't care what type of rhetoric that he is using. At the end of the day, if he's able to go out there and get his supporters to go get vaccinated, then fucking do it, okay? I just don't care about how we get to that endpoint, but that's the overall goal. And, a little bit of credit here to Donald Trump for coming out with a pro-vaccine stance. Again, he has absolutely no principles whatsoever, so basically, I'm assuming that he's going to read the room and how they responded to this specific rhetoric, surrounding him getting the booster and just talking about vaccines in a pro-vax way. Then, I don't know if he's going to continue doing this. I don't know if he's going to start aggressively lobbying in this angle from a pro-vax stance or anything like that. But, this is something we could have used years ago, basically, or since COVID became a thing, and we could have actually saved, countless lives, as he was saying right there. Obviously, he exaggerated about the fact that, we could have lost 100 million people. No, I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but we could have saved a lot more lives if you had been basically coming out with this type of rhetoric from the beginning.